What's going on, guys? So in this video we're going to be discussing some fragrances that in my personal experience tend to leave a lasting impression on people. Whether it's a first impression or it's just people you haven't seen in a while and your fragrance just happens to make a statement. Something about it just captivates them because it's something out of the norm that they haven't really smelled before. And in this video I have 10 that in my personal experience over the years, some I've had for a long time, some are very new and it's been very recent experiences, but 10 nonetheless that seem to have left a lasting impression on at least one person in my life at some point. And I want to talk to you about these fragrances because they could potentially do the same thing for you. So stay tuned. Starting with one that may surprise a few people that I've had these types of experiences with this fragrance, but honestly, I think of every version of this fragrance that's come out, this is the most captivating and this is the most memorable because it's the most unlike the rest in the line. We're talking about Dior Sauvage Elixir. This is a gorgeous fragrance. There's a light touch of the original's DNA here in the backdrop, but what's different about this, it's got a lot of nutmeg and other spices. I believe there's some cardamom in here as well. It makes for a dry, woody spice where the lavender kind of supports all of this without allowing the nutmeg to dry out the fragrance too much. It's very warm, spicy, still very aromatic, but this is a much more masculine, slightly matured take on the DNA, and it's a nuclear performer. This is one that you don't need a lot of sprays with. 3, 4, even 5 sprays is more than enough, and 5 sprays is actually pretty damn potent with this fragrance. I keep going back to it to sniff out the atomizer because it's that good. This is one that when you walk into a room, even if you are, mindful of your sprays, it does have a lingering aspect to it because it's such a high oil concentration. So when you walk by, it's not necessarily filling the room, but in the small space within a few feet around you, it will be filling the air. And in the event you happen to give somebody a hug, have a, more intimate conversation, face to face within a few feet of one another, this has the ability to potentially change the conversation into talking about what you're wearing. So check this one out. Get your nose on it if you haven't yet. For some reason or another, you should try this. Dior Sauvage Elixir. Next is one that's very new to my collection, and we recently had a dinner right before July 4th, and I actually wore this to dinner. We had met up with my in-laws, and it became topic of conversation because it's just so different. It's a marijuana fragrance that doesn't smell too heavily like marijuana. It's from Micallef. This is Desir Toxic. This is a captivating scent. It's very intoxicating. Warm, spicy, earthy, herbal. The cannabis doesn't overdo it here. It's very ambery and warm. There's a little touch of powder. There's an underlying tone of sweetness, but it's not a very sweet fragrance. This is something special. The thing I can compare it closest to is the vibe of Parfums de Marly-Layton without smelling like Parfums de Marly-Layton, but they do a similar job where I find Layton to be more mass appealing. It's for more people, whereas this is more of a topic of conversation type of fragrance when people smell what you're wearing. I mean, it's just so different. Like I said, it's warm and spicy, and yes, people have smelled warm and spicy scents before, but it's the way the cannabis is composed here with the cardamom, with the amber, with the earthier tones. It's darker, it's deeper, it's rich. And like I said, intoxicating is such a good word. This is definitely one that lingers in the air. It's not a very loud fragrance. This is one that you want to be easy on the sprays because this is one of those scents that you'd like to, I would think you would want to leave room for discovery because when it is discovered, it's intriguing. It makes people want to know more. So sometimes less is more, and this is definitely one of those fragrances in my short experience with it so far. Definitely get your nose on this one if you haven't yet. It's a special fragrance. Desir Toxic from Micallef. Next is a fragrance community classic at this point. Its impact on men's fragrances is felt and is lasting in my personal opinion. And it's one of those fragrances that there's never a bad situation. You will always make a great first impression, in my personal experience and personal opinion, with Acqua di Gio Profumo from Giorgio Armani. This is one of, if not the best, versatile aquatic style fragrances that is not youthful, is not playful, and is not just super summertime fresh and airy. It has these sea notes. It has a nice dose of earthy and slightly creamy patchouli. It has incense to really give some depth to the scent profile. It is beautiful. This is a stunning fragrance. It has some really good performance. This one dresses up well. Anybody that was a fan of the original, this is the year-round, more grown-up version, I guess you could say. This one dresses up so well. This is one of those fragrances for those that have dressier situations, business formal, special event dinners and so on, but they really love having something that's still pretty fresh and easygoing. This has some easygoing aspects to it. It has all of the beautiful aspects of the original, in my opinion. But like I said, the incense and the patchouli, the way it's done here, it kind of changed the fragrance for the better, in my opinion. And this is one that when you walk up, it will make a great first impression. This smells like somebody who's got their stuff in order and is very well put together. And that's why I say it's one that you more times than not would want to dress up. This is one of the best first impression fragrances, let alone something that's going to leave a lasting impression. This is great for first impressions, first days on the job when you're in an office setting or a more professional setting, and so on. Obviously, you need to be a little more mindful of the sprays in that situation because it can be a pretty strong fragrance, but definitely will pull some nice compliments. You will end up having a conversation with someone at some point through this bottle. It's bound to happen with someone at some point because it's memorable. It's a great fragrance. It's super versatile, and in my opinion, it's still the king of the hill in the line. The best Acqua di Gio fragrance ever made. In my opinion, of course, Acqua di Gio Profumo. One of the most clean, pure, and just magnetic scent profiles I've ever had the pleasure of spending time with. Have had others around me wear it, including family members and friends that swear by this fragrance. I'm talking about Triumph of Bacchus from Argos. This is so beautiful, and the more you let it macerate over time, my juice color is very, very dark. This is one of the older style bottles before they had the completely metal caps that clicked into place with the glass stoppers in the stem, with the pressure sensitive atomizers. This was before all of the more recent upgrades. And I got to tell you, it's amazing. The peach and apple are so rich and robust in the top note now. The rum has this nice warm boozy quality to it. The tobacco is very smooth. There's a nice tone of sweetness without it being too sweet. It's a very ambery rich fragrance, just as the color of the juice would indicate. It's powerful, but it's very pure and clean at the same time. Highest of quality, and this stuff is stunning. I can't tell you how many times, I can't think of. It's not a ridiculous amount of times, but it's more than just a few times where I've had to have a conversation when wearing this fragrance. And I've also had multiple situations where I picked it out and was like, wow, you have to be wearing Triumph of Bacchus, and end up having a conversation about it because more people know about this fragrance than I even realized, because it is that damn good. It is the highlight of the house for every great fragrance that comes out of Argos. In my opinion, this is still the king of the mountain from the house. Adonis Awakens, the newest release, is an amazing rosewood fragrance. Not rosewood, but roses, rose and woods. A little touch of raspberry. It's beautiful. Danye, gorgeous blonde wood fragrance. The list goes on and on. Bacchus Immortelle, one of the best fruity leathers I've ever smelled. Great for a wedding occasion. Like wearing that to weddings. But this, anytime you want to show out, anytime you want to get a little bit of attention, anytime you want to make a great first impression or leave your mark on someone, not just with what you have to say and the way you present yourself, this ties it all together. This is one of those fragrances to complete the wardrobe to help you leave a lasting impression. Definitely get a sample and try this one if you've yet to for some reason or another. It's incredible. It's Triumph of Bacchus from Argos. You know, this particular fragrance has spawned many wonderful flankers. I like them all. I think the whole line is good, including the discontinued for a while now fresh flanker. But A lot of people here may be surprised that I'm not picking the extreme or infrared, but we're talking about Viktor and Rolf Spicebomb, the original. So this has been around for many years at this stage, and it's one of those fragrances that people are going to remember when they smell it on you. If it's within the first 2 to 3 hours of your wear, people are going to smell you pretty easily. And there's not too many fragrances out there on the market that are as spicy with the nice undertone of sweetness, a little bit of some smooth tobacco. It actually adds a nice little creamy, slightly earthy, rich touch to the base of the fragrance. But in that first 2 to 3 hours, you're not going to get a lot of the tobacco. What you will get is all of the spice and a nice tone of sweetness with this bright, aromatic, uplifting quality. This stuff grabs people. It's historically known to do so. This is another one of those fragrances, just like with Acqua di Profumo, that's great for a first impression, not just to leave a lasting impression. Because this is one that doesn't smell like everything else. Because more times than not, your average consumer that's going to wear a fragrance to special events, job interviews, first days on the job, first dates, and so on, where they want to be, they want to complete their wardrobe. They want to be as impressive as they can be with the presentation that they're bringing to wherever they're going. And that includes appearance, hygiene, your apparel from head to toe, and completing it with a fragrance, accessories, your watch, and so on. It all matters. It all helps to put you in a confident state and put you in the right mood and mind frame to go into whatever said situation. And stuff like this isn't the norm. Not everybody's wearing this giant, it's a fitting name, Spicebomb of a fragrance. It's memorable. People are going to smell you, unless it's somebody that has had Spicebomb in the past or is like myself and potentially you watching this video right now. A lot of you that are going to watch this video that's really into fragrances, that's who's going to pick Spicebomb out of a lineup. Whereas the average person you walk by, it's captive. They're going to want to talk about it. They're going to want to know what it is. Wow, you smell good. It will leave a great first impression. It's capable of leaving a lasting impression because as long as you're handling your business in the proper manner, you have a magnetic personality. You're shining in that situation. Fragrances like this can just complete everything that you have going on. It's not just the fragrance that'll leave the lasting impression, but it can be a major part of it. And fragrances like Spicebomb can definitely do that. Next, this was kind of the star of the show this past Thanksgiving at the recording of this. It was the first time I wore it around in-laws and some of my wife's family for Thanksgiving. It was what I decided to wear because they know I'm really into fragrances. They know about my social media outlets and such. So it's one of those deals where I gotta show out when I show up to events with my wife's family, with my family too. That's just what it is. So this was the topic of conversation for a solid 20 to 30 minutes with Amouage Epic Man. Incense, spices, a little touch of some slightly medicinal oud. Has the Middle Eastern touch, that signature that Amouage is known for. It is an epic fragrance. It's appropriately named. It's not too challenging, but for those that wear designer fragrances and they're just used to whatever the mass appealing, crowd pleasing stuff is that the ladies selling fragrances at the counter ended up, spraying for them, they liked and they bought. Yeah, this might be a little challenging for that guy. But for a fragrance enthusiast, this is the kind of fragrance your style will adapt to because it's a statement maker. It's strong enough without being overpowering and overwhelming, as long as you don't heavy spray. If you heavy spray something like this, it'll be too much. It'll kind of give the opposite effect. Some fragrances are just built for you to spray like crazy. Yeah, there's the things you definitely can get away with spraying like crazy. Fragrances like this is another one of those less is more type of fragrances. I don't do more than 5 sprays when I wear it because it does the trick. The handful or so of times I've worn this so far, I used to have a decant of it as well. And it's got this presence to it. This is one of those, having your chest out, confidence inspiring type of fragrances that, if you're going to a situation where you're going to be giving hugs when you get there and such, which it was Thanksgiving with family, somebody's going to say something when you're wearing something like this. And that's what happened. Several compliments, a nice drawn out conversation about the fragrance. It was wonderful. Why did I choose that? So glad you chose that. How much does that cost? Where do you get that? All of just an in-depth conversation about the fragrance, which as an enthusiast, for those of you watching this that are really into fragrances, you love having those conversations. I had a blast having that conversation, but this was talked about until the follow-up to when we had dinner again after Thanksgiving. My mother-in-law actually said, "Ooh, I was hoping you were wearing that same fragrance again that you wore for Thanksgiving." So it definitely left an impression. It's a memorable scent memory moment for me personally, and that's why this fragrance had to be in this video. If you've never tried this one before, this is probably my favorite from Amouage. I have 6 full bottles and several decants of others. I think in total I have at least a few sprays of close to a dozen Amouage fragrances, and this is hands down my favorite. If I really want to show out, I really want to leave a lasting impression, this is a wonderful fragrance for that. It would be my choice, even in the house of Amouage. This is my choice to leave a lasting impression. Amouage Epic Man. You know, not everything needs to be challenging, dark, spicy, or just something crazy that people have never smelled before. Some things, fresh and fruity, just work when they're done right. And one of the most well done fruity, fresh, woody fragrances I've ever smelled is definitely Mancera Cedrat Boise. This stuff, it's one of those fragrances that you can use for anything. It has that maximum level of versatility. Every season, every situation, dressed up and down, including date night, special events, going to work, casually, you name it. It will work. You can spray accordingly, spray up, spray down, depending on your setting and your situation. And it's one that is going to pull the compliments in. It will. You're going to have conversations about this one. You're going to have a gorgeous trail that is going to damn near knock people's socks off. This is a great first impression fragrance because it's not daring. First impressions, you don't want to go too daring. You want something very attractive, but you don't want to go really daring. But if you really want to have a serious discussion, you want a topic of conversation type of fragrance, that's when you go slightly more daring. This kind of falls in between where it's not daring at all, but it will end up being a topic of conversation. I have had this happen with fellow fragrance enthusiasts who hadn't tried it up until that point, for example, as well as friends and family and random strangers, my wife and such. This one is one of the poster children for this topic in the first place. It's one of the more affordable, niche, higher-end luxury fragrances that's not at the top end. You can find these in the sub-$100 price point from discounters online. Performance is very good on it for me. It's a well above average without being a beast. And it's one that, like I said, it works for everything, and you're going to have conversations about this. If nothing else, just to say what you're wearing or to say thank you when somebody tells you how nice you smell. This had to be in the video because in my experience, top to bottom, this one leaves a lasting impression. This next fragrance is a big statement maker because it's a very floral fragrance based around fruity fresh pineapple at the top, marigold and rose, fresh rose. There's some woods here. There's a touch of ambroxan. It's got some complexity to it. It's a deep fragrance, but at its core, it's a masculine floral fragrance. It has a presence, a very strong one. We're talking about Kajal Perfumes Lamar. My favorite from the house. This bottle is one of those fragrances that when you want to show out, you wear something like this. Because not every man is confident enough or has the confidence in him to wear a floral dominant fragrance. They'll make fun of it. They'll crack jokes. That's for women. That's a girly scent. You want to smell like a chick. Sorry, pimpin'. You're just not confident enough to wear this fragrance is what it comes down to. And this one's actually does not lean that feminine for being based around marigold and rose. The fruity freshness up top definitely gives it that, juicy fruit, fresh appeal. It's captive. It'll pull you in. It's not too heavy on the florals at the top. As that top note starts to settle in, it does become more about the florals, but there's a toffee note. There's a little bit of spices here. There's a little bit of wood. There's some ambroxan. There's other more masculine-leaning notes to this fragrance that kind of take that feminine floral edge off something like a marigold, which is kind kind of a very rich and dark floral the way it's composed here. And it's not a heavy rose. It's not an extremely powdery fragrance. That's why I say it's not really that feminine of a fragrance. I would definitely classify this as a very masculine fruity floral. It's a beautiful fragrance. Like I said, it's my favorite from the house. They make nothing but luxury stunners with Kajal Perfumes. And I have had many, not many, many's the wrong word, but I've had multiple is the right word, conversations about this fragrance when I've worn it, because I'm very situational when I wear this, because I find it so good at drawing people in. I only wear it when I'm in the mood to draw people in, because this will be a topic of conversation type of fragrance. It does have some power to it. You're not going to have a conversation with everybody that smells you, obviously, but it has the ability to capture somebody's attention and maybe have them intrigued enough to want to ask what you're wearing, even if they don't necessarily think it smells amazing. It just smells so different. They haven't smelled anything like it before. This is definitely one of those fragrances. Not just one of my favorite floral fragrances, but my favorite from the house. One of my favorites in my collection. Get a sample and try this. They have discovery sets of the original collection from Kajal Perfumes, and this is in it. This is the highlight of the house, in my opinion. Kajal, Lamar. So these last two fragrances were composed by the same master perfumer, Claude Dior, my main man. He actually composed my fragrance Business Over Pleasure that I did with Zaharoff. But this is a cannabis-based fragrance that's based around a rare precious oud. It's ambery, it's smoky, it's herbal, but it's not too much of any one thing. This is one of the most attractive aromas I've ever smelled. It is Narcotica from Narcotica. It's the self-proclaimed, self-titled fragrance. Dolce Diablo, the newest release, is a remarkable boozy gourmand, fruity boozy gourmand, but this is the one that I have had conversations about more so than Dolce Diablo. This is one that I had an entire conversation with multiple people at Door Prestige, the perfumery in Glendale, California, who owns Narcotica. Shout-outs to Clifton. Shout-outs to Alfredo. Shout-outs to Lawrence, Jufro Fragrances. We had a long, drawn-out conversation about this. This one really grabbed us. I had to leave with a bottle that day because it's so good. My wife was blown away by this fragrance. George Zaharoff is blown away by this fragrance. My friend Dave Callie's Groom Room, shout-out to you, is blown away by this fragrance. This should win awards. This is one of the best and most well-composed perfumes ever made. It's very unisex, but it definitely leans very masculine. Ladies, you got to like a masculine tone. Like I said, the cannabis and the oud kind of come across a little on the smoky side. I believe there is a little bit of incense in here as well. It's on the smoky side, but the amber kind of smooths things over. The oud is not heavily done here. It's not the funky type of oud. It's more of a sweet oud. The way it comes across, sweet and warm. Beautiful. Just such a good fragrance. Extreme powerhouse. It's a 28% extrait. It's incredible. It's incredible. I had to save this one towards the end because these last two fragrances, like I said, were both done by Claude Dior, and they both have this crazy magnetic appeal to them to where people are drawn to these fragrances, and the first of the two being Narcotica. This is a must-try. I don't say this about every fragrance. I'm not going to say it's a must-buy. You need to sample it. Try it for yourself. It's an expensive fragrance, but if you want to leave a lasting impression, you want a topic of conversation, more daring type of fragrance, you should really get your nose on Narcotica. Last but not least is the other fragrance composed by Claude Dior that I spoke of. This is another one you have to have confidence because it is based around florals once again, like Lamar. This is more around rose. There is no marigold. There is no iris. I believe there is a little bit of peony in here, but there's Bulgarian rose, there's Turkish rose, Flora Absolute. It's a very specific. There's rose super essence in here. It's a very expensive rose oil. Olibanum tears for this beautiful smoky incense smell. There's oud that provides a warm wood touch without having that funky oud smell whatsoever. Sugarcane, vanilla bean gives this nice sweetness without making it too sweet. Without further ado, we are talking about Zaharoff's signature rosé. This is one of the best fragrances I've ever smelled. A lot of you know I'm friends with Giorgio Zaharoff. Of course, there's some form of bias here because he's my friend, but if you've tried this fragrance, you know how good this is. This is my wife's favorite fragrance. She has her own bottle. I love how this smells on my wife. It draws me in. Makes me want to hug on her. Makes me want to kiss on her. I love when she wears this. I've had people stop me in grocery stores, dead in their tracks pushing a buggy while I was in a frozen section. I've had it happen in the chip aisle at a different grocery, at Walmart actually, when it happened in the chip aisle, to ask me, what are you wearing? You smell so good. This is that fragrance. This is one that nobody's really smelled this before. Most high level of aficionados and enthusiasts may have smelled something in the realm of this, but as far as originality, this is an extremely original rose incense fragrance. George wanted to base this around the rose incense found in Greece, used in the churches in Greece. So there's a very specific sourcing for this fragrance. It was very expensive to make, I can tell you that. It performs great. It's like glue. Even after it fades, after 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, depending on your skin chemistry, it's about 8, 9 hours, it'll start to fade into a skin scent. If you had not showered yet and your body starts to heat up, it'll start projecting again like you're just an hour or two into the wearing. This stuff, like I said, if you spray it on your hand and don't wash your top of your hand thoroughly the next morning, I've had this happen. Get to the gym, start heating up, I smell rosé all over again, and it's been on my hand for, 19 hours at this point. It's remarkable the way it performs, how captivating it is for the wearer, for those around you, for strangers passing by, for those that even know you're wearing it. My wife can pick this one out of a lineup. She always knows when I'm wearing rosé. I always know when she's wearing rosé. This isn't just a great first impression fragrance. This is definitely going to leave a lasting impression because it's so different, and it's one that even people that aren't fans of rose can appreciate. I've had conversations with people that said, I normally can't stand rose fragrances, but I like this. My uncle, for example, is on his second bottle. He did not like rosé at first. He said, I don't see myself getting wearings out of it. And before you know it, he was ordering a second bottle, and he's about a third of the way through his second bottle. I talked to him about 2 days ago at the recording of this video when he told me that. So, guys, try this one. Get a sample. You can get a sample on the website and try it. It is the best fragrance from Zaharoff. Tabac's great. Citrine's great. The whole house is full of great fragrances. But this is going to be hard to top. Claude outdid himself with this one, just like he did with Narcotica for Narcotica. This is a masterpiece, in my opinion. Definitely leaves a lasting impression. Great first impression. It's just great and very unisex. Zaharoff, Signature Rosé. Well, I know that was a lot of situations, a lot of tangential stories and such, but I really wanted to give you guys some of my experiences with some of these fragrances beyond just talking about the scent profiles and the performance, because I do have very specific experiences with these fragrances. That's why these 10 are the ones in this video. I've had experiences like this with other fragrances. I have hundreds and hundreds, almost 1,000 fragrances at this point. But these are the ones that have been the most memorable in my personal life with my personal experiences. And if you get your nose on these, you get a sample and you put them out there in the real world in some of these more special events and situations for yourself, you may end up having similar experiences. Who knows? And until next time, do me a real quick favor. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. So I do appreciate all the feedback, and I love hearing from you guys. Have you tried any of these in this video, and what do you think about them? Just because I've had these experiences doesn't mean you will. Just because I love these fragrances doesn't mean you will. That's why I always preach, sample, try it on your own skin. Take my opinions and my experiences and my thoughts and feelings with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to tell you how it is for me, and hopefully that'll help some of you out there with making a decision to find a new fragrance to smell that much better than the next man. And until next time, I will say, if you get your hands on any of these 10 and you give them a spray now, who knows? There's a chance you might thank me later, but there's an even better chance you might leave a lasting impression on someone else around you. Have a good one, guys.